one of the biggest suck-ups I know.
Oh, my. Wasn't that good?
Winter is coming.
Ah, Captain! Thank you, Minneapolis! Thank you, St. Paul!
I knew we was going to beat them clowns.
Holy Toledo! Wild. Hashtag Faith Radio.
Let's go. Let's go, everybody. Let's go. Good morning.
For Minnesota here, developing. Erickson X scores! Off the rush, he beat Bobrovsky cleanly past his glove side, and the Minnesota Wild lead 5-1 here over the defending champs, and Bobrovsky would like to have that one back.
Oh, good. You homer!
Hey, the Minnesota Wild remain unbeaten in regulation. Through 6 games, they've scored first in all 6. They haven't trailed for a single second in any of the 6 games, and they haven't lost in regulation either, as the Wild dump the defending champs here in their barn 5-1 tonight, and they are 4-0-2 in the young season.
On the 9 to noon radio show on a Wednesday. Good times, bad times. Good news, blue skies. These are the good old days. Welcome to FM 100.3 KFAN. Thank you for staying at FM 100.3 KFAN from the Power Trip Morning Show, the wildly successful, ballyhooed, highly touted Power Trip Morning Show for the old 9 to noon presentation with your buddy Paul Allen, Nordo by my side. When I say good times, bad times, you heard Joe O'Donnell describing the end of the Wild throttling of the Stanley Cup, the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, and head coach John Hynes will be joining us shortly. The Minnesota Wild is off to its best start in 16 years. And you heard the Vox talk about the fact that they've yet to trail this year. 4-0-2 through the first 6. We're going to get into that with Minnesota Wild head coach John Hynes here momentarily. Then you get to what I guess would be the bad times. I mean, it's the first game of the season, but T-Wolves, though.
You gotta be faithing me!
It was strange. It was a little strange last night watching that thing when you and I were texting the con.
Man.
I mean, watching Julius Randle fit in or attempt to fit in, DiVincenzo attempting to get open, like parts of the third quarter. I'm like, damn, these Lakers are getting some free run at the basket. And like defense is the 1, the 1A, the 1B, and the 1C here in the land of the Hal. And then they make a little run. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's the NBA. That's right. Somebody's going to make a run. And then Anthony Davis enters absolute beast mode. We took an L. I mean, it's first game of the season. We took an L. It's going to require some face changing, whether you are part of the Karl Anthony Towns fan club or you're not. It's going to require some face changing.
Yeah.
Simply to watch how this thing grows and matures together. And I guess that'd be the case for the LA Lakers too. I mean, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent off the bench. I mean, they have components, with the players who are used to playing with each other. Likewise for a fair amount of the Timberwolves, but when you implement Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo et al., that there could be a learning curve within that covenant. But those Lakers last night, man, with dad and son, LeBron and Bronny, the crowd going nuts and everything, that's about as energized and active as I've seen a Los Angeles Lakers team in the last half decade. And good morning.
Good morning. And, above, the Bronny LeBron thing, super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, comparing it to like Griffey Sr. and Jr., I ain't ready to do that, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, both those guys played a ton of games. and Bronny played 2 minutes. He came on, made the moment. There was even the opportunity where LeBron dishes it to Bronny for the three. It's a clank, and we move on with our lives. But certainly a cool moment from a family perspective.
Right. Couldn't find beloved Bronny with a searchlight in the second half when they were trying to win the game.
No, he played a total of 2 minutes.
Oh, geez.
So he made one appearance. And again, that's cool. Cool family moment. Anthony Davis, I feel like, Defensive Player of the Year 4 times, Rudy Gobert. Anthony Davis does really well against Rudy, had really good games against the Wolves a year ago.
No, we got over here with this phone line. Anyway.
The phone line works?
I don't know.
Perfect.
Pot it up real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we got over here.
Okay, perfect.
Might have some power outages out Florida way. But anyway.
This is going to take, it's not going to take as long as it took to figure out how to make Cat and Rudy a thing. But you saw it last time, man, as we were texting, like Conley had a bad game last night.
How about that? And Conley has some basketball immortality to him.
Yeah.
With the longevity in the career. And this is with all due respect because I'm a fan. I can't recall ever watching him offensively come up as short and be as disjointed as we witnessed last night.
Correct. And that put Ant in a spot last night where he's taken a ton of shots. I would have liked it. And don't get me wrong, if we're talking LFL fantasy set, if he's going to get 5 triples a game, that's sweet. But I need him to get to the rim. I didn't see a ton of that. And DiVincenzo had a bad night. So a wonky start to the campaign, but I'm excited for it to get better.
Before you take this phone call, Julius Randle had an air ball from 3 feet.
You got to be kidding me.
Okay, so
Got to be kidding me.
So there's plenty on which to improve for our beloved Hal, and our beloved Hal will improve. So that was entertaining, getting that cracked open last night. What also was entertaining was the Minnesota Wild beating the defending Stanley Cup champions. And here comes John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild, off to its best start in 16 years after dismantling the defending Stanley Cup champion, the Florida Panthers. Your Wild has become the first team in 55 years to lead every second through 6 games. And here's the head coach, Paul Allen. Good morning.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Pretty well, thank you. Now it's early in the season. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions, and you're red hot, 4-0-2. I mean, the squad's performing admirably. Let's put it that way. What was last night in any way a class test? Did you preach that to them at all? That hey, these are the champs. We're going great guns right now. Hey, boys, let's see where we stand.
Yeah, certainly. It was something that we had talked with the team about, just that we were going to have to be at our competitive best against Florida, and I thought it was a good test. We were kind of playing some good hockey, but going into Florida, I think the details of the game were going to be really important. We weren't going to be able to have any, passengers. We were going to need, every guy that was dressed in the lineup to really play a disciplined game, a highly competitive game. And I thought for the most part, we answered the bell as far as those components of the game.
I would say so. I mean, you win 5-1, you're 4-0-2. Gus has allowed 7 goals. The Bus has allowed 7 goals in 5 starts. You have power play goals in 5 of 6. And speaking of power play and PK and everything, no penalties last night. Only the 13th time, I think, in the history of the Minnesota Wild. Penalty discipline. I know it's preached. I know it's stressed. Doesn't always work that way when you don't have 0 infractions. How about that last night, Coach?
Yeah, that was really good. It's something that we've really stressed. It was a bit of an issue for us last year. It's something that we talked quite a bit through training camp. It was addressed even through the exhibition games, and I think the guys are starting to value that component of the game. Just having discipline with your stick. Understanding that it's hard enough to win this league, and when you put yourself at deficits, we talk with them too. Statistically, I think the top power plays are running at like 24%. So if you're taking 4 penalties a game, 3 to 4 penalties a game, you're probably conceding 1 goal against every game, unless you do an unbelievable job in the penalty kill or you get some huge saves. So it's something we've stressed. The players obviously realize it, recognize it, and it really comes down to their discipline on the ice and the execution. And you can clearly see that our penalties are down, at least through the first 6 games. It's something we're going to continue to emphasize and stress, not beating ourselves. And when the players buy into it, and they certainly have, and they value it, then usually it gets done.
You guys have power play goals in 5 of 6. What are you liking with that operation?
I think both sets of special teams are doing a good job. Obviously, the power plays scored in 5 of 6. I think that they're doing what they do well. I think we're strong on faceoffs. We have good puck recoveries. I think our entries are good, but when they find attack moments on the power play, they're doing it. And even last night, you look at Boldy's goal. Zuccarello's up top. He's got a shot lane. We got basically a stacked screen with 2 big bodies with Boldy and Eck at the net front, and you wind up getting a tip goal. So it's the basics are really important when you have strong fundamentals on the power play, when it allows your skill to come out. And I also think on the penalty kills come up big for us, numerous. I think the big thing we really talked about with that this year was establishing details on it, a mindset on it. And I think Jack Capuano and Patty Dwyer have done a really good job of instilling that and drilling it, whether it's practice, meetings. I think the mindset is such a critical thing on that, and that looks like it's going in the right direction as well.
The goaltender Gustafson, Bus, 7 goals in 5 starts, as I mentioned earlier, and just allowed 1 last night. Is this a case of just like a man maturing, just growing up, becoming more confident in what he does, having some failures and having some success during the course of his truncated run, but most importantly, knowing he belongs?
Yeah, I think sometimes, guys do have some down years, unfortunately, but it's how you respond to that. And, as we said, even at the end of last year, Gus has got some pride, and I think he went home and got away from it for a little bit. He had a real committed summer, and I think his fitness and his training, which was something that was going to be really important. I think he learned some lessons last year of, what he needs to do to be a good goalie with his personality and, how he needs to go about his business. And I think he's come back, mentally in the right spot, physically better than he was last year. And I think he's being himself. His practice habits are strong. I think he's trying to be who he is and the type of goalie that gives him the best chance to be success. And I think he's in a great spot mentally and also physically to allow him to be able to play the way he needs to play.
Hey, Coach Hynes.
Little puck talk.
You mentioned the word training, and we read about this and we heard about this up to the season, the hard training camp. Let's just frame it up that way. The hard training camp. Do you in what ways do you see it's paying off, at least in the early stages of the equation?
Well, I think when people always talk about it being a hard training camp, and in my opinion, it was a training camp. You have to get really 3 things in. You got to establish your work habits. I know players, they work hard in the summer, but you got to get into the hockey habits. You got to get the summer out. It's how you compete. It's being able to be in competitive situations and game situations. It's being able to do it day after day. It's also when at times that's the time when you can practice the hardest, the longest. You can instill your structure, you can instill your work habits, your mentality, second and third efforts, actual game-like conditioning. And, the players push through it. I mean, you could say you want to have a hard training camp, but if the players don't come to work every day and embrace it the right way, then it probably doesn't go as planned. So I think it was a combination of having the right mindset, pushing the pace when we needed to push the pace. And now I think you're starting to see some things come through. We have good conditioning. I think we're battle ready. We're physically fit. I think when you come through, you go through 2.5, 3 weeks or 18 days of a training camp and you put in the work, that's your preparation builds confidence. And we put the preparation in, and now we're executing in the games.
Now, a couple more here for Coach Hynes. Wild 4-0-2. That rocks. Kirill Kaprizov. You're a hockey guy. I'm not. His control, getting Bobrovsky to bite, and completely leave the mouth of the goal, completely leave the area. Then Zuccarello scores into a wide open net. Kaprizov's control as he went around behind the net, that was kind of amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I think when you look at that play, what makes him special is, I think, as he gets the puck in the slot from Zuccarello, he's got really 3 decisions to make in a matter of 2 seconds. Right. So he gets the shot, right? He gets the puck in the slot, realizes the shot's not there, goes around the net, realizes Bobrovsky's out of the net. He's got the decision: do I try to stuff it, or do I hit Zuccarello? As he comes around the net, he sees the defenders right in the post, hits Zuccarello, bang, it's in the back of the net. That's what makes special players special. Carill's got an unbelievable skill set. He's got a great work ethic and competitiveness, but the mind for the game, that's what separates guys like him.
How does he get the puck to Rossi? I think it was the first call. How does he get the puck to Rossi? Are you kidding me with that pass?
Yeah, it was, something we had talked about and having stressing is just getting to the inside, getting to the net front. And then, Marco does a great job. He gets right into the top of the blue paint. Carill's got a little bit of time and space. So he knows that Marco's in that spot. And then it's the execution, right? He puts it right on his tape in the area where Marco can tip it in. And that's being predictable, where Kirill knows where Marco's going to be, and now it comes down to just executing the play.
Thank you very much for the time. Have fun against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we will chat next week, okay?
All right, thanks, Pierre. Always a pleasure, man.
Yes, sir. Travel safely. Thank you. John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild. I mean, we're only 6 into it. It's like, we just riffed on the Wolves a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, the Julius Randle situation looked a little strange. DiVincenzo, he's going to have games. He hits 5, 6, 7, 8 3-pointers maybe, and hopefully, but just watching that thing gel was one thing. Likewise, on the other portion of the equation with the Minnesota Wild, they haven't trailed all season. They didn't just beat the defending Stanley Cup champions. They absolutely buried them, rolling out a couple of lines, the Rossi line and then the one with Boldy. I mean, those are 2 legitimate, wonderful, threatening lines. They're 4-0-2. And once again, this is pretty cool, where not only did they not take a penalty in the game for the 13th time in the history of the franchise, but they are the first team in 55 years to lead every second of every game through 6 games. Hey.
It's time to drop the puck.
Thank you, TimberTech. Thank you, TimberTech.com. What's on deck 9 to noon includes some Vikings-Rams intel around the corner with their play-by-play voice, J.B. Long. Basketball immortality, Big Shot Bob. Robert Horry is on the 9 to noon show about 45 minutes from now. We happen to be super excited about that. Alec Lewis with The Athletic. Before he leaves for La La Land, he'll stop by the 9 to noon stable. And Pressure Points at the end of the radio show. We think you'll enjoy that. Norder produces, and I'm Paul Allen. It's 9:18. The Rams Vox is around the corner, but first we got this.
The Fan, along with 2 men in a junk truck, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. The keyword is cash at KFAN.com. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword cash. Might win $1,000.
Here comes the Rams Vox, J.B. Long, and in the Rams' victory over the Las Vegas Raiders, he had a really cool play to call.
Play clock at 8. Minshew ready. 2nd down. Rams creeping. They bring the blitz, trying to heat up the pocket. They hit Minshew. Ball's loose. Scooped up. Can't curl. Down the right sideline. 10, 5. Touchdown, L.A. Kobe Durant knocked it out. It's a scoop and score at SoFi.
Courtesy 710 ESPN, Los Angeles.
Vox. In his 9th season calling LA Rams games, J.B. Long joins us now. J.B., Paul Allen, thanks for getting up early. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be up early. Good to be speaking with you. And if I keep on this regimen of my testosterone injections and 2 packs a day, maybe in about 10 years I'll sound like you.
Stop that. Is tomorrow more significant for the 2-4 Rams or the 5-1 Vikings? And I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I just want to hear you explain it.
Well, I'm looking at it through Rams-colored lenses, so I would say Los Angeles for lots of reasons, including the lack of wins relative to the Vikings. But I could make the case the other way because of how competitive your division is. The North competitive in the wins column, the Rams division, unfortunately, is now competitive in the loss column. But that's part of why I think the 1-4 start didn't quite sting as badly as maybe it would have under normal circumstances, because San Francisco, Seattle, nor Arizona have run away with this thing in the West. And so even though the Rams I don't think have played a good football game yet. If their best football is in front of them, they've still got a chance to do what teams rarely do, which is start 1-4 and find a way to make the postseason.
Tell me what you think of the Raiders win, and why I ask, JB, is when I watched it back, it's maybe this has been the case the entire season for the LA Rams. It was just a tricky figure. You know, there's so much speed with so many players on defense that not many people have heard of. And then you have the defensive lineman in Kobe Turner, where he splashed last year. So we've heard of him. And offensively, it was tough to wrap my mind around Matthew Stafford and some things that I was seeing. However, a couple of rookies on the offensive line, some shuffling that's taken place during the course of the year. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua. This team is just at times a tricky figure. Is that a fair way to look at it?
I think so. You know as well as anyone in this league, it's not just who you play, but when you play them.
Yeah.
And they got the Raiders at the perfect time. They had just traded away their top receiver. Their number 2 was injured. And so that was Brock Bowers and a backup quarterback and not a lot of good going for Las Vegas. And so the Rams were able to scuffle in 2 phases on offense and in the kicking game and win on defense, which as one of statistically the worst defenses in the National Football League, I don't think anyone would have expected. Now, their circumstances have really changed these last couple of games. Getting Darius Williams back at corner has put their back end in order. And paradoxically, despite losing the best player in franchise history, Aaron Donald, they're getting more pressure across their front this year than they were with him last year. So go figure on that one. But, the biggest thing is it felt like you had to take a shower even after that win because it was just an ugly victory, one the Rams sorely needed, and it has the power to change their circumstances. But yeah, that's not an oil painting that you would hang on the wall at the Rams facility for sure.
Yeah, but it was like, I never thought the Rams were going to lose. It was one of those where it's like, this ain't great and that ain't great. Oh, that's pretty good. But like this team is never going to lose in this game, and they definitely needed it. And so now, they stay at SoFi, and now come the Vikings today for a game tomorrow night. At SoFi, from a fan base standpoint, and I'm sure that you've heard this a million times, but like from afar, we'll watch NFC West games and we'll see all the Niners fans and stuff like that. But like tomorrow night, what do you think it's going to be like tomorrow night? I mean, it's Thursday. Out here in the cornfields, you got Billy, Johnny, Christy, Susie, Tamika, and Antoine in sports, and people are working and stuff like that. So the influx of fans coming from here to there may be a little more sparse than usual, and Vikings fans travel well. But what do you think of the crowd tomorrow night? What do you expect?
Oh, I'm sure it'll be Viking heavy. The Rams are pretty much used to playing on silent count, whether home or away, especially when they take on these institutions in the National Football League. And they've had several of them on their schedule this season at home: San Francisco, Green Bay, Las Vegas, now Minnesota. Look, it's what I love about living and working in the Southland here, right? As people come from across the country and around the world to make their lives here, they happen to bring their sports fandom with them. And especially in the National Football League, where the Rams were away for 2 decades, they've got some ground to cover still in raising the next generation of Rams fans. So when you talk about the struggles offensively, especially given the offensive line injuries the Rams have suffered, they've turned some free rushers loose, especially guard to guard. That's been a real issue and will be again tomorrow against what I know is a dynamic Vikings pass rush. But I think the context of that is you got to realize that Matthew Stafford's pretty much doing it on a silent count no matter where he plays.
This is J.B. Long, the Vox for the Los Angeles Rams. He called them into the winner's circle after Super Bowl 56 at SoFi when they beat the Cincinnati Bengals in a very thrilling game. And at Twitter, at JB_Long, cool tweet from about 25 minutes ago. The last team to start 1-4 but win the division, Cameron Curl was on it. Now that's a safety, a DB for the Rams, and a huge factor in the comeback. Now he's trying to help LA do the same thing. And you can learn more about that at Rams Revealed, which seems to be pretty cool. But not nice, at least 6 into it, man. And I'm not super familiar with Cam Curl, but seems to be a nice unrestricted free agent pickup by Snead McVay and the gang. Do you agree?
Yeah, he did that in Washington as a rookie, a year in which he had 3 picks kind of in that pandemic season. And he was an early entry into the NFL draft, only played 3 seasons at Arkansas, and is still one of the youngest members of this roster. He's at 25, Paul, younger than some rookies in this draft class. So that's kind of the water that the Rams swim in, right? They don't usually participate in free agency, at least not under this regime, but when they feel like they have a chance to get a bargain deal and maybe someone who can play through that second contract, they jump. And I think he's so much more than a safety. I know you have a couple of guys like this on your roster too, where last week they lined him up just about everywhere, on both edges, as a dime linebacker, as a safety, in the slot. So those are the chess pieces that right now they really need on defense, because they're mixing and matching in a lot of ways. And this week to week, this 5-day stretch is the perfect example. You go from playing Brock Bowers, probably the best emerging talent at tight end right now, who's getting a huge target share for the Las Vegas Raiders, to now Jefferson and the 1 out of 3 passes that he catches for your team. And the difference in the challenge week to week between these two offenses is as dynamic and different as is the defense and Brian Flores.
Kevin O'Connell, not surprisingly, has such respect for his former boss, Sean McVay, as do I. What are some things, maybe recently or during the course of your time there with Sean and Kevin, what are some things you can remember McVay saying about Kevin O'Connell, maybe even up to this game?
Well, yeah, you referenced the Super Bowl year, and no coincidence, he was integral in that effort, especially working with the quarterback. I mean, Matthew Stafford came right in and threw for more than 40 touchdown passes, and I think Kevin's demeanor, acumen, personality, leadership skills, all of those things were on display. He was just a really good fit. He's one of those guys where if you don't get along with KOC, that's probably a you problem, right? It says more about you than about him. He seems to be a culture builder. Not because he comes in and writes things all over the whiteboard and is a rah-rah guy necessarily, but because he goes about his business respectfully in the right way, in a real principled manner. So I really enjoyed my time with him. I know he was one of Sean McVay's favorites. I think I've relayed this anecdote before, but in the NFC Championship game against San Francisco that year, Cooper Kupp scored a touchdown, and the mic'd up moment had Sean basically turning to Kevin and saying, "Great call," like giving credit to that instrumental touchdown to Kevin, which was surprising to me. Maybe surprising is not the right word, but revealing to me, because so much of the architecture of this organization, this offense, has always been Sean. It runs through Sean. He's the head coach. He works with the quarterbacks. He's got the play sheet. He's on the headset. And even though there have been some really instrumental offensive coordinators, both LaFleur and KOC included, during his time, it's always been Sean. And in that moment, maybe the season-defining moment pre-Super Bowl, he turned and deflected the credit to now the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings.
Hey, JB, with Cooper Kupp and the assumption he will play tomorrow evening, having missed 4 consecutive with that ankle, and by the way, he's the Super Bowl 56 MVP, and he's one of my very favorites, and Puka Nacua on the mend, and he's certainly on the horizon. Tyler Johnson, 5th-year Golden Gopher, arguably certainly one of the better receivers in the history of this program out here. Minneapolis North High School is where he attended. Tyler in that Lions game, like opened some eyes with just how he was bursting all over the field. With Kupp playing and Nacua on the horizon, how will that impact Johnson?
I think he's still going to be an important part of the rotation. I think, if anything, the Rams have learned in these first 2 months how important being a little bit more diverse in their personnel might be. Like, if they can keep some tread on the tires of Cooper Kupp, if they are going to make a run. Puka Nacua, coming off that injury, probably not ready for a full set of downs. So I spoke with Tyler after that big performance in Detroit. He had a similar catch and run against Las Vegas last weekend. And you're right, he represents your area very well, still touts it and talks about his roots and how important they were to his evolution as a football player. Even talked about being on hockey skates, believe it or not. So I really enjoyed that chat with him, and he's been a nice find, right? He's always kind of been on that roster bubble, but he's worked with some great ones, including Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. So I think he's ready mentally to be a part of this offense with or without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua.
Last one, and I look forward to chatting with you later and seeing you tomorrow at the stadium. Does the rookie kicker Joshua Carty make you nervous?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, any rookie kicker does. I think any kicker anymore does, unless you're on the short list of those fortunate enough to have a future Hall of Famer. But it's wobbly right now. And Paul, you know this, so much goes on that individual's shoulders, but it's an operation, right? It's a unit, and it just looks dicey to me right now. I think the Las Vegas Raiders were doing some things that made the Rams uncomfortable in their kicking game, and it trickled down all the way through to the actual laces of the rookie kicker. So there's some cool similarities between these two rosters. As you know, there's a lot of mutual connections, and even the fact that they both drafted an edge rusher in the first round, they both drafted a place kicker. That's kind of what makes Thursday Night Football rich in angles for me. I'm not sure which one of them is going to decide the game, but kicker will almost certainly factor in and probably give the check mark to the Vikings in that column for now.
Yeah, I mean, when your game calling depth chart, when you get to the Vikings offensive portion of the equation, and maybe you already have, our guy's 30 for 30. I mean, 18 for 18 on extra points, 12 for 12 on field goals, 4 of 4 from 50 and beyond. He hit a 58-yarder against the Houston Texans that hit the right upright, but he kicked it so well with that bionic leg. It still went in. So Will Reichert and Joshua Carty, it might come down to them. I'll chat with you later, and thank you very much for the time, all right?
All right. Thanks for the invitation, and safe travels out west.
I appreciate you, man. See you. JB Long, the box for the old L.A. Rams. It's 9:36 PFT. Mike Florio is next. Man.
9 to noon.
There we go, Paul!
PFT.
It's Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com, also author of several books, the most recent Son of Mine, and PFT joins us now. Some questions about the book in a second, actually, Michael. But Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford, for you, because we all F3 and refresh ProFootballTalk.com multiple times a day. We're looking at it all the time. And so therefore, when it comes to Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford and the Rams and the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold and stuff like that, for you, is this a bang the fist on the table? The Vikings should trade for him, or a suggestion and good morning?
Good morning. Well, Paul, I don't know. A suggestion, an opinion, a belief, a preference. I just think it makes sense. And if the Rams are down the path of potentially trading Super Bowl 56 MVP Cooper Kupp, even though the MVP of that Super Bowl should have been Aaron Donald, but if they're down the path of trading Kupp, why wouldn't they be looking into potentially trading Matthew Stafford? This very well might be his last year with the team. They've been somewhat ambivalent about him in recent years. It's been a year-to-year arrangement. There was a little bit of a dust-up after the Rams didn't take a quarterback in the first round of the draft back in April. And at the end of the day, Stafford wanted more financial security beyond this year. He got some, but not much. So many believe that this is it for him anyway. And if this is it for him anyway, then trade him, get value, and turn the ball over to Jimmy Garoppolo. Or if you want to see what Stetson Bennett has, this is an opportunity to give him an extended audition. So I think it makes sense for the Rams to trade him. The question is, where do you trade him to? And if a starting quarterback on a contending team gets injured in the next 2 weekends, and we know it potentially can happen. Deshaun Watson, even though the Browns aren't a contender, boom, just like that, he had the Achilles tendon snap like it did for Kirk Cousins last year on October 29th, so it can happen. But in the absence of an injury to a starting quarterback on a contending team, which would create an opening for Stafford to be traded there, you look at the Vikings and you say, is he an upgrade to Sam Darnold? And it's so easy to say, well, Darnold's playing well and Stafford isn't. Yeah, because Darnold's in a better spot right now than Stafford. If you flip Stafford and Darnold, wouldn't Stafford be doing as well, if not better, than Darnold in that offense, especially since he knows that offense, he knows that coaching staff. He was with 3 members at least of that staff in L.A. his first year there when they won a Super Bowl. So I look at it as a no-brainer from the standpoint of, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to win a Super Bowl, or are we trying to dog paddle our way to maybe the divisional round, maybe get lucky and go to the NFC Championship and extend the losing streak in the conference final game to 7? Because currently it's 0-6 since 1976, the last time the Vikings won an NFC Championship. And that's really the nutshell. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to win a Super Bowl, or are you trying to just be good enough? And you look at what Mike Tomlin did this past weekend, flipping from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson. He did that in part, even though Fields was 4-2, Steelers were winning. Mike create waves in the locker room. Tomlin did it because he's trying to win a Super Bowl, and he has a quarterback on his roster with a Super Bowl win who might have a higher ceiling, and he's willing to roll the dice. So you got a quarterback in L.A. with a Super Bowl win, with a Hall of Fame pedigree, who very well might be available. If you're trying to win a Super Bowl, if that's the goal, and I submit that it should be, and we've all watched seasons that inevitably have gone down in flames one way or another. They're like snowflakes. Every one of them is different, but the end result is still the snow melts all over your shoes. If that's what's going to happen, at least reach for the brass ring. I think sometimes if you fall off the horse and crack a tooth reaching for the brass ring, at least you reached for the brass ring. That's my position in a nutshell. And good morning.
And good morning. Matthew and the Rams, in my estimation, through 6 games, Matthew's a tricky figure because with their offensive line, most recently they used a couple of rookies. Their left guard was undrafted. Their center, a 4th rounder. I believe they're going to get back Noteboom, one of their better offensive linemen this game, and they'll get Kupp back, and Nakua's on the horizon.
Why would you play Kupp if you're talking about trading him, though? See, there's a lot of common sense that doesn't get applied to these situations. Why in the world would they play him on Thursday night if they're going to trade him? And if they do play him, I guess that means they aren't going to trade him. Why would you put him out there on the field if you're going to trade him?
Well, perhaps given his proclivity to become injured about every second of the day of late, maybe they want to put him in a race so everybody can watch him run, so they kind of would know what they're getting off a month and change off an ankle injury. I mean, Cooper,
and then he gets injured and you're screwed. That's the point.
Yeah, I'm not heading into a game with a guy healthy, worried that he's going to get hurt and it might mess up a trade. I mean, that's if you're going.
Well, then that's why you're not running a team.
Okay,
I mean, look at what the Titans
right,
did.
man.
They pulled out DeAndre Hopkins from the second half of a losing effort. They claimed it was because he was banged up, and what happened? Boom, he got traded today to the.
Have you watched DeAndre Hopkins closely this year? He's awful.
But regardless, it's impossible to assess one person's performance when he's stuck on a crap team. I almost said the other word.
No, that's fine. But let me
put DeAndre Hopkins on the Chiefs. Do you really think DeAndre Hopkins isn't going to be awesome on the Chiefs?
Sure he will. But let me finish my Cooper Kupp.
Juju Smith-Schuster role with an extra level because he's better than Juju Smith-Schuster even at this age.
Okay. May I finish my Cooper Kupp comma after the comma?
Hey, it's your show, baby. Do what you want.
The words after the comma?
Me.
Okay. All right, 3-2. So Cooper Kupp has missed 4 consecutive with an ankle injury, and he's only played every game in a season 2 times. So injuries can be a problem with Cooper, who happens to be incredibly well compensated. I don't believe many teams, if any, certainly the LA Rams don't, they got some envelope pushed to them, operate from a fear-based standpoint. So we're going to put this guy out there. And you know what? We're going to cross our fingers, even though that means 0, that he doesn't get hurt, and then maybe we trade him. Maybe they're not as interested in trading him as some of the stories would indicate. But it's.
I think they are. I think they put it out there. They have a very, very well-oiled machine within the media to get the word out there and start the phone calls coming. But go ahead.
Right. But see, now also with the Stafford side of it, because I agree with you, and the Rams are envelope pushers. So who's to say that they're not putting the Stafford information out there, trying to desperately win a game to get to 3 so they can throw Darnold off into this game with even a 5%er thinking, what's happening here? I've had a pretty good season so far. We're 5-1. I mean, what the hell's all this about?
Well, I look at it this way, Paul. First of all, I don't think that the Rams are that conniving where they would go next level. Let's throw out this idea that we're trading Stafford to the Vikings in order to throw off Sam Darnold. And secondly, if Sam Darnold would be thrown off by that, he's never going to make a big throw in a big spot in a big game. If he gets thrown off by that, when he's got access to the people who will go to him and say, hey, Sam, this is all bull crap, it's never happening, then he's not a guy we should be trusting as the quarterback of the Vikings anyway. That's how I look at it.
Oh, right. But you're right, and I agree with you, but there are a million things that have been done over the course of time in the National Football League that really don't matter, but teams still do them, antiquated as they may be, just in case we're missing a box checked or a proverbial T crossed. And I agree with you, but I mean, like, Stafford's money moving forward isn't much either. So, But like,
and let me go back to your last question. If the Rams were trying to do this, it would have been reported last Sunday by NFL media and or ESPN. They would have put it out there right along with the Cooper Kupp stuff.
What do you mean?
Because if the Rams are trying to do it, that's how they do it. They initially leak it to one of the primary Sunday Splash Report cannonball experts that this is a guy that we're getting some interest on, and yada, 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 he's available. And you get the word out that he's available, so teams know he's available, and then teams start to call. Now, the problem is the delicacy of the delicate nature. I don't know that delicacy is the right way to put it. That's more like a really good food. But regardless, the delicate aspect of the Stafford situation is it's not like he's a guy you just trade anywhere. It's got to be a contending team. They're not going to just dump him on somebody, and nobody's going to want him unless they see him as an upgrade to a contending team that believes there's an upgrade to be had, whether it's because of injury or the guy we have is a failed former top 3 draft pick who we have kind of whipped into a great second act because look at what Kevin O'Connell did with Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins last year. That's what I think we lose sight of. People lose their minds about this idea that Sam Darnold is suddenly one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's with O'Connell. He's with Justin Jefferson. He's with an offensive line that for the most part is good, although there were some lapses last week. If you put Matthew Stafford in that situation, you're going to get better production. And that's no offense to Sam Darnold. I think he's sufficiently self-aware. He gets it. He was supposed to get a tap on the shoulder for J.J. McCarthy. If he gets a tap on the shoulder for Matthew Stafford, is he going to be upset? I don't think so. I mean, yes, he would be, but I think he'd understand why it's happening.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's troubling you so much about Darnold? I mean, specifically the mobility, and you watch all the games, so you know what I'm talking about here. The natural, inherent ability to move away from a problem, is I'm not going to say it's a separator in what we're talking about, but it is a big sway the way of the guy who's here.
I want to see big throw in a big spot, and I was troubled by the 3rd and 4 play when the Vikings could have gotten a step closer to slamming the door on the Lions. Right. That was unfortunate. He rolled right. I don't know who he was throwing to. Yeah. I don't know what that play call was. I would have wanted to keep the ball inbounds on the ground, force the Lions to take a timeout. The Vikings could have won that game. You get caught up in the whole excitement. Can the defense stop them? Well, the defense did stop them after the Vikings went up 29-28. And the offense got it back. And I was impressed by the fact that 3 different times this year, when a multi-score game was whittled down to a single-score game against the 49ers, the Packers, and then the Jets, Darnold and the offense responded with field goal drives that provided the key difference for the game. 3rd and 4, just converted. They still probably would have had to get one more first down, but even if they hadn't, there would have been less time for the Lions to get down the field and tie it up. That 3rd and 4 play bothered me. And if you are talking about a guy that's going to potentially carry a team to a Super Bowl title, you got to make that play. You got to make that play. Think about that throw that Brett Favre made against the 49ers. Who was the guy who would go on to become
Greg
a receivers
Lewis.
Coach?
Greg
you know
Lewis.
What I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's Greg
the guy
Lewis.
That made the catch.
Rob,
Greg
seriously.
something.
Greg Lewis.
Greg Lewis. Thank
My
you.
God.
You need a moment like that before I'm going to sit forward in my chair and say, this is a guy that could carry the Vikings to the promised land. You need a moment like that. We haven't had that yet.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, NBC's Football Night in America.
I got you boxed. You're boxed.
No,
the
not
Vox
boxed.
in the box is in a box.
Yeah, that's one way to put it, Michael. But with lastly here, with that 3rd and 4 play, it troubled me too, until I learned where the bones are buried, which you haven't. Addison ran the wrong route, got in front of Jefferson.
Uh-oh. Did Aaron Rodgers say that?
Darnold had to throw the ball, because Monday morning before I got the intel, I'm like, what are we doing here? Why do you have to throw it 100 miles per hour like Nolan Ryan? Why do you throw it so high? If you convert that, you're probably going to win a game that it looked for a long time like you weren't going to win. Addison got in his way, so he had to throw it the way he did. I still think he threw it too hard and too high, but I'm with you on that. But I'm not going to take 1 3rd and 4.
What if you bail out on that play and just go down and take a knee and force him to take a timeout? What if you just say no? This isn't going to work.
Where one guy made a mistake to get in front of the other guy, so the quarterback had to change on the fly. I'm not going to take that and that microcosm and throw a blanket over what we've all seen with that quarterback during the course of the year. Now, with Stafford, yes, I'm not going to sit here and be like, do I trust Sam Darnold to make that big Greg Lewis throw and to scam the defense the way Matthew Stafford has for 16 years? No, I'm not going to be foolish like that. But Stafford's a tricky figure right now because with these 17 sacks, he's on pace for 50, which would be the most in his career, and he's been sacked all of his life. Some of these sacks are on him, too. So the lack of ability to move, like he used to move, I would just be a little more concerned about it than you.
Look, here's my final observation on the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Deep down in your heart, you know that Stafford potentially takes the Vikings over the top and that Darnold probably can't.
How are you going to tell me what I know in my heart?
You can flirt with it. You can dance around the edges, but you can't say it because of your employment relationship with the team. And that's fine.
You're out of your mind.
But deep down, you know I'm right.
No, you're out of your mind. Hey, how are you going to tell me what's in my heart? And how are you going to tell me how I get paid by my employers? Okay,
because I'm a student of human nature.
You're a fool.
I'm not being critical. I'm just saying.
You're a fool.
You know deep down.
No, don't tell me that I know.
That Stafford is the potential difference maker, and you can't say it, and that's fine. I'll say it for you.
Well, I don't think Stafford is the potential difference maker. That's why. I think Dexter Lawrence is a potential difference maker, but I ain't sure about Stafford at this stage of his career.
Paul, enjoy the wild card round. And if the Vikings manage to win there, enjoy the defeat inevitably in the divisional round.
Okay,
if that's the case.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. That you can see the future. Hey, what's up?
I've lived the past for 50 years, Paul. You've only been around for 20.
Mm-hmm.
I've been around for 50.
Okay,
I've seen this movie to the point where I don't want to watch it anymore. And when a chance comes around to reach for the brass ring, my position is do it, because I ain't getting any younger.
Right, and your position from West Virginia is very easy to throw tomato cans from the upper deck when really I think you're shortchanging the progress Darnold has made through the course of the season.
I put it on Kevin O'Connell. Look, I think it's great what Sam Darnold's done, and this isn't intended to be disrespectful to him. The point is Matthew Stafford can still get it done at a high level, and it's something the Vikings should be considering. When we first talked about this last week, all I said is it's something that should be considered.
You might be right.
If he's available, it's something that should be seriously considered, because the idea is, do you want to get your fingerprints all over that silver trophy for once in the life of the franchise, or don't you? And sometimes you got to take a big swing. Even if you're potentially going to hit yourself in the head with the bat, sometimes you got to take a big swing.
Hey, my man, you might be right. And I'm also not one to say that this is a 0%er, what you're talking about. But in closing, with your book, Son of Mine, I just want to credit you for the work that you've been doing with distributing the books to correctional facilities and giving people in very difficult spots distractions. So great job with that, man. The philanthropic side of the book, Son of Mine, has been terrific to learn about. Thank you, and I'll call you
Thank you, Paul.
Yep, I'll call you next week. Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. Big Shot Bob is in Bob Ori is next.